I want you to kill every golfer on the course.
Check me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but if I kill all the golfers, they're gonna lock me up and throw away the key.
Golfers! You're Greek, kid, not golfers. The little brown furry rodents.
We can do that.
Hey!
We don't even have to have a reason.
Do it, man.
All right, let's do the same thing, but with gophers.
Ash!
Send us news of our victory.
There we go, brother. Very short, very quick, very direct opening. Little Caddyshack to start off the show. What could be better?
Nothing.
What could be better?
I love that. I love that. That was beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
It was.
Inspiring.
It was definitely.
That was an American
inspiring.
rocket going off, though.
What's that?
That was an American, not Chinese.
It
or
was
Russian?
actually no. It was several different versions of American rockets.
Okay.
So it was a good shot, if you know what I mean. So yeah.
So let's light this candle.
All right. Well, the candle's lit, brother. We're cruising. So tonight we're going to talk about updates, and I've given it a very, very special name, brother.
Hey, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
So the updates are the dumb and restless in politics. That's what I've decided to call it. Then we're going to go on to I'm calling out the mob, and then our third is the 5 things you need to know to win in 2022 and 2024, and the last is the Hat Jack.
But, okay, wait. But before Lex Luthor, before we get started on that, it's not. I'm calling out the mob.
Lex Luthor. There you go.
It's not. I'm calling out the mob. I'm calling for a mob. Please send in. I need a mob. I need a mob really quick. Not.
All right, well, you're a little early for that. You got your scenes coming up. Well, listen. So it's a little off, but it's all right. It's all right. So let's start with what we're going to be talking tonight for. I gotta stop sharing. Hold on, I gotta put it on right. I didn't put it on right. Gotta share the audio as well. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hear the fun. So I wanted to start off with the American Thinker and Project Veritas. So, John, I don't know if you remember the election when we had the Project Veritas guys. They did this whole thing where they did a background check or a video they recorded. Of course, they recorded a video, and they talked about this. They put out something. The New York Times tried to shut them down by saying it was they like had video of a guy with a ballot, a ballot stuffed into his trunk, and he had all these ballots, and he was like ballot harvesting in a state that you couldn't ballot harvest, and it was all undercover. They got the guy red-handed. It's all legit. And the New York Times comes out and says, "Oh, that's crazy. That's wrong. It's completely, it breaks them down and says that they're just not. It just didn't happen, and completely trashes their story." Now and I know that the standard for like was it libel or slander is very high, right? It's very high
if you're a public figure.
Yeah, well, and so they're trying to say New York Times because the Project Veritas went after the New York Times for it. They sued them.
So they slandered them. They slandered Project Veritas with a lie.
Right, and in the process of doing it, since you're John Wick, the lawyer, in the process of doing
enough.
it,
you still need malice, and it's a catch-22. It's a catch-22 because you can't get to discovery without showing that the malice of the evil lie, except for in this case. Go ahead.
Well, what we have here is they try to get it dismissed, and we see claiming that the deceptive video made claims through unidentified sources and with no verifiable evidence. The damage did not stop there. The article was subsequently, that's all the negative. Where I'm trying to find it. Here it is. In response, New York Times responded, admit that research from Stanford University and University of Washington published a blog post about the video on September 29th as part of a joint project. What it all comes down to is they didn't do their research. They just put out something with impossible amount of time for them to have reviewed it. And it was completely that slanted article they put out was a hit piece. And it was clear, and the evidence was backed up The judge threw the motion to dismiss out, and they're going to court, brother.
They did do their research, and that's the malice. They knew they were lying, and it's nearly impossible to get them normally, but this is going to be a bellwether case because now he gets past that, and he can get into actually the discovery of the New York Times. I'm glad you took this one, not me.
All right, so the next thing, now we're moving on to the next thing. The Iranians have decided to pump up the volume and try to attack U.S. ships in the Persian Gulf. That's never going to end well for them. They're going to find that a little difficult. But it's not a surprise, John, right? Not a surprise. Who's president? The guy who we're going to be talking in a few minutes about is trying to be cutting. Is going to try to cut a deal like his boss did 4 years ago with Iran. So we see the same old pattern of Iran fighting against America and them getting away with it all they want. We're going to start seeing this pattern again. This is the first round. And I want to also talk about the National Review, which is a hit or miss sometimes lately. They did a defense of teenage knife fighting, as you can see on the screen. I just wanted to read this one segment here. Who among us hasn't come within a second or two of murdering someone else with a steak knife? My best friend in school, Bobby the Blade Simpson, used to throw shivs at the smaller kids in the music room. Did we need the authorities to step in when that happened? No, we did not. As MSNBC's Joy Reid argued smartly on her show last night, pranks such as these were dealt with by our teachers, not by me. It doesn't happen with me. Just as well, we expected they would be. And if something went wrong, well, that's why we have substitutes. In all honesty, I worry that this sort of helicopter policing is making us weak. Back in my day, the people who survived a good stabbing came out stronger for it. I learned a lot of lessons from my time in the ring. Self-reliance, how to overcome fear, the importance of agility, the basics of military field dressing, and given the turnover, I also learned how to make new friends. This is my kind of piece. Nice and sarcastic and coated with an extra layer, if you know what I mean. Perfect for this absolutely ridiculous statement that these so-called people of faith said. So let's move on to the next topic in the wild weird world of stupidity. You may be able to notice, brother, if you look at the screen, this is the new reapportionment for the states. Came out this week. We know which states lost votes and we know which states gained votes. No surprise at all that New York and California both lost a vote. That means they lost a seat in the House, and they also lose an electoral vote each. Florida gained 1, Texas gained 2. Now, Pennsylvania lost 1. John, your state lost 1, and so did West Virginia, Ohio, and Michigan. And
why is Pennsylvania beige then? I don't understand that map.
Well, this map is 270 to win. This is from 270 to win. Okay. They think it's a toss-up state. Like they think Texas is a toss-up state too. Yeah. So they have all these toss-up states. They're the brown ones. All right. So you'll see. This is not that surprising of a map right now. So I'm going to play this video here of this. I'm just going to play it. You tell me what you think.
All right. So you brought up the police in your speech a few times. So what is your main concern? Since, honestly, the whole reason police, it is systemic. The issue is systemic because the whole reason we have police departments in the first place, where did it stem from? What's our history? Going back to what Jeremy was talking about, what does it stem from? It stems from people in the South wanting to capture runaway slaves.
Maybe they shouldn't be heroes. Maybe they don't belong on a kid's show.
So I disagree with what Jeremy said about it because I think cops are heroes and they have to have a difficult job, but we have to have that
all of them.
Life. Oh, I'd say a good majority of them. Have bad people in every business and every part.
Yet
Well, wait,
a
wait,
lot of
wait, wait,
police
wait.
officers have committed atrocious crimes and have gotten away with it and have never been convicted of any of it.
And
And I
they,
say this as a person who has family members who are police officers.
yes, I understand. And this is what I believe. This is my opinion. And this is, not popular to say, but I do support our police, and we have bad people, and the people that do bad things should be brought to justice. I agree with that. But I think that, I'll say it again.
They haven't.
Well, I agree with you on that point of they should, right?
Okay, so what is your
And-
bottom line point? You're saying police officers should be revered, viewed as heroes? They
I
belong
think
on
it's-
TV shows with children?
I think they are heroes in a sense because they come to your need and they come and help you, and they have a problem just like every other business, but we should fix that. But
It's not
I think they're
business.
heroes. Well, they're
I think
a
that's the
program.
problem. It's looking at it as a business because they're actually supposed to protect and serve.
I think the problem here, brother, is really the so-called teacher. I think Socrates would have thrown her out of his little cove and said, "Go re-educate yourself." She is by far the most. I mean, you can't.
What does
If
she
you
teach?
wanna-
What grade does she teach?
It looks like she's teaching high school or college. I mean, I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. I don't
I'm
really
glad you did
care.
the
It doesn't
research on
matter,
that,
though,
brother.
John. No, but John, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter whether you're teaching college or high school. That kind of behavior from a teacher is completely unacceptable. I don't care where they think they are. That's not challenging a student to better themselves. That's trying to shut down a student's free thought. That's trying to convince the student that whatever I say goes and whatever you say doesn't. That's the ridiculousness that we're fighting in our schools. This is the worst part. This just makes every teacher look bad. It proves just why our educational system is broken. At least this is just one piece. There's many pieces to it. But people like this person, she wants to talk about having, the gentleman says that there's bad people in every group. Well, we've just found one of the ones in the educational field who is a bad example of a teacher. She's a terrible because her agenda was being challenged. She had to get all defensive. Don't teach. Go become a commentator because that sounds more like what she wanted to do. It really that kind of stuff annoys me when I see educators do this. I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but what I will say is I check myself for my personal stuff coming in, and I make it clear there's only one thing that I will not, that I am biased on, and that is this is the greatest country in the world, and it's the greatest country in the history of the world, and that's it. Check everything else at the door. Let the kids build their mindset, and you teach them how evil socialism is. Having said that, now let's talk about something funny, brother. This I think you will find particularly funny. We have good old Mitchie, good old Pierre Delacour. Listen to the crowd, John. Listen to the crowd.
That's his hometown too, right?
Yes. This is the GOP convention, John.
That's in Utah, right? That's his good
Utah.
fit for him.
Utah GOP convention. Do you hear the boos, John? Do you hear the boos?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Somebody said go back to Massachusetts.
Oh,
So what do you think about President Biden's first 100 days?
They're not booing Biden.
You know me as a person who says what he thinks, and I don't hide the fact that I wasn't a fan of our last president's character issues.
no, his character.
Also no fan.
He never says what he thinks. He only says what he thinks he can get elected with. Talk about the way he lacks virtue.
Aren't you embarrassed?
Yes, I am embarrassed. You should be embarrassed.
We're embarrassed
should
for
be
you.
embarrassed.
We're embarrassed by
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
Go away.
We are totally embarrassed by you. Oh my God, John. It gets. I'll just play few more seconds because it's great. It's great. Here comes the little man to come save him.
Yeah, sure.
My
Here comes the
friends,
little man to save him.
This is the moment I was talking about.
Please, thank you. Show respect.
John, they knew the crowd.
You get respect. You get the respect that you show every other people.
Exactly, brother. Exactly.
Go take a knee for Black Lives Matter, you idiot. Get the hell out of here.
Go. Kick him out. He won. The
Go
point
take a knee
is,
for
though,
Antifa.
he did. He was not censored by the Utah GOP. He barely didn't pass. So
that's Utah there, brother.
Yeah,
I know you want to move
Utah.
out there.
No, not Utah. Not Utah. Wyoming was my first choice.
I'm going to Colorado.
Well, it's a blue state, John. It's a blue state now.
I know.
All right. So our next and last bit of the night is Tim Scott speaking in response to Sleepy Joe. I have no idea which room I'm sleeping in, and if this woman is my wife or my
sister.
Creepy
Sleepy Joe.
Creepy Sleepy Joe.
100 years ago, kids in classrooms were taught the color of their skin was their most important characteristic. And if they looked a certain way, they were inferior. Today, kids are being taught that the color of their skin defines them again. And if they look a certain way, they're an oppressor. From colleges to corporations to our culture, people are making money and gaining power by pretending we haven't made any progress at all, by doubling down on the divisions we've worked so hard to heal. You know this stuff is wrong. Hear me clearly. America is not a racist country. It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present.
That's spectacular stuff. Fantastic, spectacular.
Yeah, so there you go, brother.
What are you putting him on?
Man, because it was part of that. You know, I was listening to him and they came up and I was like, hey,
just go.
It
was a national speech.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
It was
All
really
right,
good.
so-
I really admire that. Now, just like our president says, I was just at the Dunkin' Donuts. It's being taken over by the Indians. But then I went from the Dunkin' Donuts. I went over to the Lowe's and was of course going through Lowe's. I see every race under the sun. Not even speaking English. This idea that America is a racist country is the biggest piece of crap. POS lie that there is. There's no bigger lie. America is the bazaar of all nations. We used to have in Delaware County. We used to have the bazaar of all nations. We are literally the bazaar of all nations. Are you kidding me? It's a complete lie. I'm glad he said for it, but that's all they got. That's all they got is the big lie. Jim Crow Joe. That's all he's got is this lie. What he needs to do is Tim Scott's just too nice a guy though. They need a little bit more of fire in there. Calling these creeps and these liars out for what they are. But
I just don't know why they didn't have Trump do the rebuttal.
Duh, right?
Why did they have Trump do it? That would have been
Rallies-
so much better.
Rallies are starting again.
Sleepy Joe. That would have been great.
Our guy's already started. He's endorsed somebody in a special election, and he's threatening rallies. So we're gonna get the fire back. He's got to do it too.
He's gotta, brother. He's gotta. All right, so it's your show now.
All right, we're gonna do a little story to touch your heart, there, brother. Even though you are looking like Lex Luthor right now, but for a good cause. We're gonna go talk about the Hatch Act, and something that happened to Laura Loomer. Which is who, if you ever want to watch Laura Loomer, go to her site. She's probably the premier. I consider her the premier journalist today because she's got more people ticked off at her than anybody that else out there. And the reason why, of course, is because she's a cute little Jewish girl, and she knows that the certain excitable followers of Muhammad are out to kill Jewish people, especially in this country. She has that crowd after her, but she also has the Antifa creeps after her, and that's why she's probably the most hated person in journalism today. She's a real journalist too, not like the fake news. She's the one who took the hysterical thing she did. She took the illegal aliens and put them on Nancy Pelosi's front lawn. That, and she's also the one that outed that creep Ilhan Ilmar for marrying her brother. And subverting our immigration laws. But a little while ago, she confronted Comey, the fake FBI head, for when he came out with his book about the lies that he was telling. And for that, something happened to her, which is shocking, and we should all be on our radar for. So it involves the 1939 Hatch Act, and I'll go through it, and then we'll get back to Laura's story. So in 1939, the Democrats, of course, were using the WPA to and the government to intimidate and like bribe their way into elections in key swing states like Pennsylvania and Tennessee. So they came up with the 1939 Hatch Act, which was to prevent interference in elections by government officials, and the title of it was the Pernicious Political Activity. It was supposed to stop pernicious political activity. Now, I'm going to take a little aside here to talk about the original ballistic patriot, Luigi F. Baldini, dear father. Okay, and as a little bit of the backstory is, in 1957, Sputnik went up, and the Americans were way behind the. Thanks to Eisenhower, the Americans were way behind the Russians in the space race and in various science. So the United States military decided that they were going to quantify the science behind weapons making. So the great Dr. Paul Flynn. So there was an intellectual movement in the United States Army, and the great Dr. Paul Flynn hired a bunch of physicists right out of school, namely the original Patriot, ballistic patriot himself, Luigi Baldini, right when he got out of college, and they literally quantified all the science behind weapons making in Frankfurt Arsenal and a couple of the other arsenals. And so these young physicists were tasked with like what's the best penetrator? Well, they would say a vacuum tube, radiate, X-rays, all kinds of measurements. They shot everything down, the vacuum tube, and they determined what the best penetrator, which is a long rod, which is basically an arrow. And from this original, this quantifying of the art of weapons making, physics became an applied, weapons making became a applied science in the field of physics, which was a golden age, which we'll probably never see again. These are the guys whose uncles and fathers fought in World War II, and they couldn't do that. But it was just like JFK had said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. They sacrificed, huge fortunes and making lots of money out in the private world. They were the best of the best scientists, and they went and created all the great weapon systems to destroy the Soviet Union, which is what they did. And they are the ones who cracked the Soviet Union by outproducing them with things like the M1 tank and every other weapon system that we still have around today. So anyway, while he was doing this, he worked for the government. I remember him taking me to Congress at one point, and he would have to explain, because he's a scientist for the Army, and he would have to explain to Congress in a congressional hearing what this weapon was and what's the science behind it and why they needed it. So in all that time, you never knew what his politics was, because these guys took this idea that if you are working for the government, if you've taken the salt from the government, it is your duty to be completely apolitical. So even the old man, we did not know what his politics was. Nobody knew, other than the one time when Nixon resigned. He brought us all into the room, and you could see the tears in his eyes. He didn't know if that was because the president was resigning or not. He didn't say anything other than that. And other than that incident and another incident, which I'm going to relate, you didn't know his politics. Of course, I have to relate it because it involves ballistic patriot, brother Liberty Joseph. So one day, the old man has a squirrel down in his office down in the basement, and the squirrel, and the squirrel, and so he gets his tier 1 shooter, Brother Liberty, Joseph, and he says, "Well, what do you need to kill a squirrel?" Well, we don't know exactly, but we're a scientist, so what we'll do is we'll test this out, and we'll start at the very lowest, and we'll work our way up. And I don't know if he had, God knows what he had. He probably had one of those Swiss minis, those like 2mm rounds. But anyway, he's arming up his tier 1 shooter, who takes one shot and hits the squirrel in the head every single time. As he's shooting through on safari, as he said, through the basement to kill the rampaging squirrel. Of course, there's all the power lines and the pipes down there, so he doesn't want. He's trying to do this as scientifically and judiciously as you can. I think they got all the way up through 22, 1.17, 22 long, 22 long rifle before the one shot finally took out the raging squirrel. But in the middle of that, at some point, the squirrel, dives behind a picture of Nixon, and instantly the old man stops the tier 1 shooter, raises that gun up and says, "Not Nixon, never Nixon." Other than those 2 incidents, you had no idea what his politics were, because they took it seriously. This idea that if you're for government, you have a duty to not be political. Right. Now you see the nonsense that's been going on today, and now we're going to our time, and that's they're the men and women who cracked the Soviet Union by producing the finest weapons. And as you know, of course, every weapon that went by his desk, he said, I have 4 sons. This could be one of my kids. It's got to be the best. And so that was his standard for the Hatch Act, which should be the actual standard. Now, if you remember, now they were using it against Trump, saying that Trump, when he used during the middle of the pandemic, used the White House as a violation of Hatch Act. Of course, it's not. Literally from the very 1939 version of it, the president and the vice president are exempt from the Hatch Act. But I want you to recall your mind. Remember, though, good old that coward in Fast and Furious, good old Holder and Hillary Clinton in Fast and Furious, using government resources to give to over 200, at least, to cause the death of at least 200 people, to give weapons to cartel members so that they could gin up political support against the NRA and push forward Obama's anti-gun agenda. Remember the IRS, Lerner Sluer, a good old what's her name? Lerner. And the IRS, who charged using the IRS against the Tea Party, squelching the Tea Party. Remember, good old Comey sending a letter exonerating Hillary, and of course the whole entire Mueller probe, the entire fake Russian dossier hoax that was used against against President Trump, and also the fake charges that the FBI used against Lieutenant Flynn. And you see the government completely out of control. Well, what had happened to Laura Loomer was this. So she confronts jerk liar Comey, and the next thing she knows, that she doesn't know about it, her name winds up on the FBI NICS check. So the FBI is in charge of NICS, which is the national database that approves you getting a gun or not. Now the timing of this is she's now suing for this, but the timing, it goes like she gets on that NICS check right after she confronts Comey. So she hasn't gotten the full details of this yet, but the timing is indicative. Everything in these cases is timing. So she confronts this liar about his lies because she's a true journalist, and the next thing she knows, she's on the NICS check. Now, It's a setup, because she doesn't, just because you get on the NICS checks, it doesn't mean right then that they come take your guns away yet. But what happens then is then she moved from New York to Florida, whatever, and she's trying to get a concealed carry permit because she gets so many death threats from the excitable Muhammad followers and the excitable and the Antifa creeps and the rest of the people that she's exposing for the particular versions of evil. She gets so many death threats that she wants to get a concealed carry permit, and she gets denied by the Florida version of the NICS check. And the reason why is because she was put on. Then they tell her she was put on the NICS check as a forbidden person to have a firearm. Now, she's never had a felony. She's never been. She just did in her own website. You can see she's never been so much as a traffic ticket. She's never been committed for any psychological reasons like that. She's obviously not a drug user or anything like that. So the only way that she can get there, and the suspicion is that good old Comey and his creeps in the FBI put her on the NICS check for the political agenda that they have to use the government against people that are their obvious political enemies. This is now in her, and she has a great little statement in it. Is listen, we've lost the First Amendment because she's been banned from everything under the sun, just like President Trump. And if we lose the Second Amendment, like this, we're never going to get the First Amendment, back. So I try to join as a fan, but I can't because I gotta figure out you gotta do that for me, brother. But it's just, we at the Ballistic Patriot, we like to point out where this is going and what the things you have to watch out for. So now that Biden is asking for a 70% increase in the IRS, and I love the IRS because I've been on the phone with them forever. Not that I have any money, but I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on with my taxes. I am a government worker. They're government workers. They're always very, very friendly on it. But what you see is you're seeing the weaponization of the instrument of governments. This is a tyrannical perversion that needs to stop. And the only way to do it is to start RICOing these creeps and start civilly and then criminally prosecuting them. And you can prosecute criminally privately too for their use of the instruments of government against their political adversaries. They unfortunately they watered down the Hatch Act. There's still supposedly criminal penalties, but they're in the hands of the DOJ, so that's useless. But you can still sue people, so you can still go after people civilly for RICO and then criminally RICO, and you can also go after them privately, criminally for state violations, which if this happened up in New York, she should go after each good old Comey and any of his cohorts that decided to put her on put her on this on the NICS check because she dared speak truth to power and dared do an act of journalism by confronting a avowed liar, a known liar, for his lying statements. So I figured I'd give you a little walk down memory lane on there as I tied it all up there.
Squirrelgate, John. Squirrelgate.
Now they're going to come after. Unfortunately, he's passed on, so they really can't touch the original Ballistic Patriot.
No, they can't. But they probably would if they could.
That's why whoever wins again, Trump, it's not enough that we win. These people who have perverted their duty, who have perverted their duty, they need to go to jail for the use of power. Just like a rapist using his superior physical power over a woman to rape them, or a thief using a gun to rob somebody. This is exactly the same type of evil. It's the narcissism. It's got the lack of empathy for the victim, and it's got the predatory nature of it.
Keep going. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to go with because that was the end of it. But so that's why the Hatch Act was so important. Unfortunately, I think in 2012, it was some of the penalties were taken away, and I think the main penalty now is it's reviewed by the council, by the president's own council, by the executive's own presidential council that says the office of counsel that says the most you can get, I think, is like a year penalty, meaning you're removed from government office. And I think there is a slap on the wrist version of 30 days. But basically, they just review and say, oh, you violate the Hatch Act. You shouldn't do that. Please don't do that again. And they've taken a lot of the teeth out of the actual act. But again, there is a criminal version of it that's in the hands of the DOJ. Not that that's going to help anybody on our side, as we've seen in the past. That's why they need to go after them for various RICO and particularly state versions. All right, so that's the end of the legal beagle section and the pernicious political executive section. I guess what I'm supposed to go on to now is to calling for the mob.
I'm back, brother. All right. I was here. You couldn't see me? All right. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fisk.
Wow. Okay. All right. There we go. So here we are. So how to win in 2022 and 2024. So this is a key thing here. I want to talk about, first off, this is a template. It's not meant to be used exactly to be shoehorned in with anybody's campaign. This doesn't include raising the money. This doesn't include any of that. This is simply what are the best ideas that we're going to fight or use to fight against the left. And it's the collection of at least 5 topics and 1 principle. So let's dive in. So, brother, the 5 topics in no perfect order, and these will help you win. The first principle, all these issues are connected. How? If you can figure out how, then you got pretty good chances of winning. Because that's the first principle. They're all connected by one of these. One of them ties into all of them. And if you can overcome that issue,
what do I win? What do I win? What do I get?
First class ticket to nowhere. So topic number 1, I have chosen the border. Now, the topic with the border is pretty straightforward. You know, when President Trump had control of the border, he had control of the border. We were sending the migrants back. We were sending the message. He had sent the message from the top saying the door's closed, you're not allowed here. And he confirmed it, John. And this is the best way you can confirm it. When you have people staying in Mexico who get sent back to Mexico. So when the new people who want to try to sneak into America, they get to the border with Mexico and the U.S. and they see all these people being returned. They think, well, maybe it's just not worth me crossing. That's one. And then we got this guy who's calling himself the migrant president because he's so nice and gentle. John, his message to the world was come to us and we will give you your free meds, your free food. We'll care for you. We'll house you. We'll do all the things that you can do. And John, it is a crisis. I was listening to Ken Cuccinella, and he described the currently what we're dealing with like 170 to more of people who are being brought in the month of March. And he described it as being, if you were to look at these numbers and look at the kind of person coming today versus the kind of person the last time the numbers were this high, the comparison is really, we would be, with the amount of manpower needed, we would be really handling nearly 500,000 illegal immigrants a month. That's the kind of numbers that he's talking about, because in this batch that we have today, we have the ones we had before were all pretty much all male adults. That was it. What we have now is we have kids, we have mothers, we have fathers, we have families, we have different groups of people who are connected and disconnected. We have men, but because we have so many of the other kind of population, they require different kinds of housing. You can't stick men with women. You can't stick children with adults. with the mixed group of adults. So it creates its own set of hassles. He describes something like a good percentage, like almost up to 40%, are changing diapers. This is ridiculous. This is a national emergency on our border once again, and you see these national emergencies coincide with the presidents that are the Democrat presidents. This is the message. This is the message. So he needs to be instructed. That needs to be used against him. Topic number 2: Iran and the Middle East. President Trump left the White House, and the Middle East was quiet. He left the White House. He had 3 peace deals. Correct, 3 peace deals and more on the way.
He defeated ISIS.
He had defeated. You're right. He
defeated the Caliphate.
And John, one of the things that isn't talked about is Solo Khamenei, the guy he killed, that the press and the media, that the Democrats attacked him for and went after him for, that caused the Iranian theocracy to step back, because he was an extremely important leader to the overseas terrorist operations. He was an extremely important. They're exporting terrorism, John. These people are still chanting in the streets, kill Americans, kill Americans, and so, but they were isolated. With Trump, they were isolated, and they were cracking. They were breaking under the strain because of the sanctions he had put in place, because he had ripped out their ability to pull in the money. People were ready to revolt. And now with Biden, that's all gone. We have now a presidency that is not only working to try to fix, or to bring it back, to come back to the protocol that they had before, the Iranian protocol. And I'm going to read you this quote during you want to talk about breaking the law. This guy, John Kerry, when Trump was president, was over in Iran telling the Iranians about Israeli acts. There was, John Kerry is recorded to have saying the news article by Iran International, Zarif, he's one of their foreign ministers. It was former U.S. Foreign Secretary John Kerry who told me Israel had launched more than 200 attacks on Iranian forces in Syria. So this is, who says we should trust an Iranian foreign minister? Except for there's apparently audio tape going around that's going to be coming out at some point that's going to identify this. And if that does come out, it does be found to be true. John, isn't that a violation of which act was that? There was the one they used against General Flynn. What was that called? Whatever they use against General Flynn, they should use against John Kerry. Anyway, number 3. We have this is where we see the inconsistency of the Bidens and the Harrises. What we have here is, at the beginning, China's our friend. Here, listen to the video. I mean, if you can understand and translate it, you translate what he's saying, because it's Sleepy Joe, Creepy Joe.
Look at who we are. I've met virtually every major world leader in my role as vice president and as foreign relations chairman over the last 30 years. That's not hyperbole. Virtually every one. I don't know a single solitary one who would not change places with the problems the president of the United States has versus the problems they have. China is going to eat our lunch. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the west. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us.
So it's not really sure exactly what he said there, but I'm pretty sure he said that they're our friend, that they're not our enemy. He's trying to say that they're not our enemy, and now he's trying to say they are. So he's now trying to take the same position as President Trump. John, this is the same. He's trying to do the same thing here that he's going to be trying to do with the vaccine in a minute, which is the next topic. He continues to try to alter his words and change his approach. He is now pro or anti-China. He's now anti-China, and they are a threat. Let me get this out of the way and go to the next one. All right, and here's Kamala, John. Remember, she was anti-vaccine, and now all of a sudden they're pro-vaccine.
And it's Trump that's anti.
Yeah, I mean, if
even
you
though
look
it's Trump's zine, he created it.
It should be seen that way. I got to tell you, it's 100% his, and he's the guy who got it. I was listening to how they did it, what they did, John, and I'm not going to go into. I'll say that for another one. But here is Kamala.
For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
So President Trump, it's evil President Trump. He's the guy who is 100% responsible. I will dive into it. Not only did he order, John, he ordered out almost 800 million doses of all different kinds of vaccines, of the different ones. He over-ordered so vast a number for the single sole purpose that these companies would build faster, would build up their systems faster, and be able to have the production facilities so that we would be able to get these medicines to the people faster. And John, I'll even throw it out even further. What he did was, they wait until they start making the medicine. They have to wait till they get approval before they start making the medicine. President Trump, not Biden, President Trump was able to order ahead of time. He said, listen, you start making the medicine, and before it gets approved, or get it ready so that when you get approved right away, so it goes right into production, so that it's made ready to go, because there's a lot of investment to that, and they're not going to put money into that in a traditional setting until they get approval from the FDA. So that would have delayed it months, if not longer. Not Trump. Trump said, get ready. We'll make sure you have the money. We'll make sure it's done. That's why he ordered 800 million, John. John, you know how many people live in the United States?
330 million.
330 million. He over-ordered between the different vaccines for the single sole purpose of making sure that these guys built out their systems fast enough. This and John, what they don't tell you, and what whoever runs it for Congress and for president needs to say is, these mandates to put down, to lock down, and to keep people home, that prevented real life emergencies from being dealt with. There's going to be a larger increase of death by cancer because people were not allowed to go get pre-screened. They were not allowed to get checked. There's going to be more deaths from heart disease because people who didn't get to get checked, they didn't get their stress tests, they didn't get the other things to help check their health. All that stuff was delayed because of these ridiculous lockdowns that people were forced to endure, and not even talking about the suicide increases, which we're already feeling, and the increased amount of drugs that our children are going to be put on because they're so living in fear of this monster that the media has created called COVID. That is, John, that is now leading me into my last topic, which is the media. The media is the one that ties it all together. We can't win unless we dominate the media space. We have to dominate the media space like Trump did in 2016, and we have to dominate it by doing what you and I are doing here and by spreading out the message to other places. This is our common sense. This is our pamphlets. This is our chance to do it because we cannot rely on the media, to be honest. They had a blackout on President Trump for so many years. They had a blackout on President Trump so that they couldn't hear or see or anything about that he was doing good. You don't even know about half of the stuff that he did good because the media never reported on it, brother. And that, my brother, is it.
Wait, what do I win? Do I have to guess something? Do I have to guess something?
No, you don't get to guess.
How do you, what is it all connected for? How is it all connected?
Yeah. I don't know.
You said it was all going to be connected somehow.
I just told you it's connected. I told you, John, it's the media. It's the media. It's all about the media, brother.
I thought all five of them were connected.
They are all connected
all right.
by the media. The media is the thing that we have to conquer. We have to overtake
and that's
the
what
media.
Ballistic for.
That's what the Ballistic Patriots for. Us and all the other little guys out there like us who are fighting and that are going to grow and get bigger and stronger. But the only way we're going to do this is if you like and subscribe our page.
The Real Press.
The Real Press. Yes, we're the Real Press because we actually do journalism, John.
Yeah.
We have journalism, live acts of journalism on our website. You should check it out. ballisticpatriot.com.
That's good. You should get that. Put on that.
I should.
You should check it out.
ballisticpatriot.com. All right. Yeah, now it's all you, brother. Let me put
so I'm calling for a mob. So I'm trying to look in the yellow book for a mob and I can't find it. So if anybody knows the number for the mob, and again, this is not Casa Nostra because we all know that does not exist. That never existed. Forget about it.
311 down in New York City, John. 311, isn't that the state, the city government?
I don't need the city. I need a mob, James. I need the mob. I'm calling for the mob.
That is the mob, John.
Anyway, and let me be clear so they don't get us for any insurrection or they call us quote a right winger. I need a respectable mob. I need a mostly peaceful mob. So if there's some fires and some burnings and some murders, it's
mostly peaceful.
A mostly peaceful mob.
We want the CNN definition.
Demand a mob because I'm looking at it. I need a mob, and here's what it is. Basically, good old the guy who sleeps in the White House, President Asterisk, came up with his 100-day speech where he's calling for cradle to the grave education, mainly as a free handout of more money and to destroy our children even further, for free handout to more money to that creep Weingarten who's in charge of the teachers union. And so if our mother, who was an education professional and had 5 masters, was the most smartest partner we ever met, had always said you can look to when in the 1970s they created good old Nixon, when they created the federal education department, the Department of Education. That's when you see a tanking of all of the scores for children in America. And so now that they've destroyed public school education to the degree that in 2018, when one of the little baby Ballistic Patriots graduated from Upper Darby High School over here in Drexel Hill, the class had 1,300 kids in it. That's how big Upper Darby is in one grade, and only 800 of them were allowed to walk. 500 of them could not get through that year in seniors in 2018. They've completely destroyed public education, as you know, and you should be doing this. But as they're now calling for cradle to the grave education, so they can destroy preschool and they can destroy secondary education after that, I demand a mob. Now, a lot of people blame that the unions for the problem. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that that's the source of the problems and how they destroyed education in America. Some people say tenure. I'm not saying that. Some people say no competition. I'm not saying. I'm proffering another reason for the death of education in schools. And my reason for it is they teach Darwin instead of Jesus Christ. Now, it allows me to right one of the historical wrongs that that I've been aware of. I think we did one of our first shows on this 20 years ago about Inherit the Wind, and what the Inherit the Wind was really about. So I say, listen, we got these mobs burning down all these places and pulling down statues there. How come they haven't pulled down and gone after the purveyor, the number one purveyor, the father of the idea of the white patriarchy, none other than Charles Darwin himself, whose origins of species and most favored racist was the biggest racist pig in English history. There is almost no difference between him and good old Hitler. The only difference between him and good old Hitler was smarter. Hitler was smarter and got it. And got it more than good old Darwin. The only other difference is that Darwin thought that the Anglo-Saxons were the apex of evolution, and that the Irish were the lowest of the white races, and that blacks were just like gorillas, and that good old Hitler thought that the Germans, of course, the Germans were the apex of evolution, and that the Jews, that was his version of the Irish, the Jews were the lowest of the white races, and that, of course, blacks were close to gorillas. So how come they had cancel culture? Now that they've canceled Shakespeare, now that they've canceled Chaucer, I just heard the chancing, Chaucer, who of course wrote Canterbury's Tale in 1392. Impressed? Remember, 1492 is when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but 1392. Before there was even a place an American to do the African slave trade. So they're now canceling Chaucer, of all people. How come they don't cancel the progenitor of the worst white patriarchy that there is? Now you got me on this because we were talking about this back when you were nice enough to go down in Florida and visit Florida last year. We remember this came up when we were talking about it. I think one of our early shows in this format about what happened in the 1900s. In the 1900s, that made racism worse than it was during the slavery time. Remember, we were talking Wilson Reed. They had to reignite the KKK. It was dead. They came up with anti-misogyny laws. Saying laws against marriage of white people and black people. And they came up with worse laws than they had during the slavery time. So in the slavery days, you had to be 25%. Black before you could not black, but of slave ancestry before you can consider slavery. But in the 1900s, they cracked it up, and they were even those laws then at that time were saying is even one drop of slave blood and you were considered a slave, 1% even. And that was so crazy that when the Nazis were looking to discriminate against the poor Jewish people, that they were that they looked at they weren't looking at the slave laws so much as they were looking at the American eugenic 1900 laws of the Democratic Party down South and Wilson, and they were looking at that and they said, oh, you know what, that one drop of slave blood, that's just too crazy for us. Even the Nazis said that was too crazy. What was informing the culture and civilization at that time to make whatever life was back for African Americans in the slavery days worse than it was in the Jim Crow laws that good old Biden is so familiar with? What was it? And it is literally Darwin's idea of, I would call it, scientific racism. He put a scientific, now there is no science to it. It was complete nonsense. It was all fraud. He was just an atheist creep who had to destroy God because he stole and had to be anti-God because he stole his idea from Alfred Wallace. But he put this imprimatur of science on it. Oh,
Didn't Joe Biden go to school with Darwin?
Apparently so, right? Jim
I had to
Crow
throw that
Joe.
there. Jim Crow Joe fits perfectly there
Right.
with Darwin.
Well,
they probably dated their sisters together.
we did not put it together 20 years ago, but one of our shows pointed out the fact that Inherit to Win was such a bunch of crap, because Inherit to Win is a Spencer Tracy plays Clarence Darrow, and he goes against one of the few Democrats we liked and loved, which is William Jennings Bryan, one of the true great Democrats, and one of the true great Christians, and he ran for a true
Ran 3
pacifist.
times for president.
Ran for president, right? And is a guy who kicked the KKK off of the presidential platform. That, so he's credited for that, and he was fighting.
Why the Democrats hated him, right, John?
Right. Certain Democrats like Wilson and company hated him, and if the Democrats had gone his way, then we would have two patriotic parties instead of what we have today, a literally enemy of the United States of America, masquerading as a political party. So anyway, what that movie was actually about was a Tennessee law that John Scopes. This is the famous Scopes monkey trial that John Scopes, who was a teacher then, was trying to teach his class. Now, it was a textbook that he was forcing on them, and there were some good parts of the text. It had Mendelian biology, which is true science and true biological science. Good old the good old monk Mendel had figured this is your green pea and your blue eye versus brown eye distribution, and so it had it, but it also had this nut jobbery, eugenic, Darwinism crap in it that they were propagating, that was saying things like, oh, look, like Darwin had said that whites that blacks are closer to gorillas than they are to whites. And that there was these favorite, he called his, the favorite races were, of course, the white race, and they would like eventually would eugenically remove the unfavored races. Of course, that Margaret Sanger and the creeps in Planned Parenthood believed all this stuff, and of course the Nazis and the creeps, they believed that, and of course eugenics was this huge movement in Galton, his Darwin's cousin, created the eugenic movement, and for the compassion of all the insane and people and gay and anybody else that they didn't like, and the Jews, they would remove them from the pure white race. And so some of the things that was in civic biology, which was one of these quotes, which was being forced on the Tennessee. There was actually a Tennessee law against it. And one of the passages went something like this: if the poor, the insane, and the handicapped were lower animals, we would probably kill them off to prevent them from spreading humanity. From spreading. Humanity does not allow this, but we do have the remedy of separating the sexes in asylums and in various ways, preventing intermarriage and the possibility of perpetrating such low and degenerate race. And so, what do you think they were? These are the guys that were going to allow blacks to marry whites. And then he had another great line in there, the writer of the civic biology, blood does tell, and in a section about what young men should do, meaning, look who you're going to marry, make sure you purify the race. And so this drivel was being taught as science, and it's the same nonsense that's being taught today in the schools. And let's give me a chance to jump on my soapbox to right a historical wrong. We're all looking for the truth. Well, we should be looking for the truth, and the truth is that the problem with the Scopes trial was this nonsense being fostered There is nothing. The skin color is such a small part of your DNA. It has nothing to do. There are geniuses that are black. There are geniuses that are white. Why would you not want a genius that is black, that is going to work in the field of cancer, is going to be the guy who cures cancer? What the hell is wrong with you? What do you care what color he is? Or the great Dr. Carson operating on your child if you need the best brain surgeon in all time, or the great Dr. Chin if you need somebody of Oriental background and you have a child with half a heart. What do you care? And that is the unique beauty of America. Now, contrasting that to the founding documents, to a particular guy who said this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, that guy, good old TJ, was the guy who started the public school system. I don't know if you know this, brother, in Washington, D.C. when the presidency moved there in 1800. He created the first public school system, and he gave to them the first public school book, which was
the Bible.
There you go. Good job, brother. You paid attention. And in it was a particular section that I've translated for you. And it's 15:15, John 15:15. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that the Father has told me to tell you, I have told and shown to you. And that is, we call that the freedom gospel. And that's John 15:15. And it's really where the nothing new under the sun except for Jesus Christ, the words of Jesus Christ, the life of Jesus Christ, and the practical exposition of those, which is the United States of America. Those are the two only new things in the under the sun. And from that gospel, you get to be the friends of Jesus, of course, our wonderful Quakers, the founding father of Pennsylvania, William Penn, and this idea of freedom. So more TJ, more JC, no Darwin, and you can actually cure the problems in the public school system. The problem is, are you going to see that? Well, it started that way, so maybe eventually we can go back to that way, and that's what needs to be done for to save the school system. So if we're going to get cradle to the grave schools, it'd be nice if we could get cradle to the grave school with a little truth in it, instead of just doing it for a way to pay off that creep Amy Weingarten and her union cronies. And that's so I'm calling for a mob, to a mostly peaceful mob, to go to the schools and say, hey, why are you teaching them this Darwin crap that says that our little black kids are, or well, what your good old President Asterisk call them? He said, poor kids are just as smart as white kids, meaning, what else does he call black people? Cockroaches, and
right.
And who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy again? Corn Pop. Corn Pop's a bad guy.
Dude, man.
He's a bad
dude.
He's a bad dude. So maybe President Corn Pop there can right a real wrong and bring back JC's plan to teach people the Bible in public schools.
Maybe, brother. Well, we're at an hour and 10 minutes. That is, I believe, our show. Any final words?
It's all good.
Wait. I gotta remind everyone, like and subscribe our page. Make sure you check out our Facebook. Make sure you check out our YouTube. Wherever you're watching us, it's well worth clicking the little bell or checking the little notification button so you can make sure that you get notified when there's a new post. We got a lot of action going on our website, so, and our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So keep an eye out. Take care, everybody. And it's all good, brother.
Because God loves you.
Because God loves you.
Next command. Stand by.
I want you to kill every golfer on the course. Check me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but if I kill all the golfers, they're gonna lock me up and throw away the key.
Golfers! They're great, not golfers. The little brown furry rodents.
We can do that.
Aye.
We don't even have to have a reason.
Do it, man.
All right, let's do the same thing, but with gophers.
Ash!